Good morning, Hassan Elementary School. This is your principal, Dr. Miller. Today is Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, and it is Digital Day 3. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I am really excited to let you know, Hassan, that we have an author who's coming out. She is a published author with a book, and Jackson's Not So Colorful Day is the name of the book. You're going to hear a lot about her book in media coming up in the next couple weeks. Your teachers are sending things home to parents. I want you to know they can go into the portal, parent portal, and purchase a copy of the book at a discounted price, and then you will get your own autographed copy if that's something you and your family choose to do. So check it out. We're pretty excited. I also want to let you know, coming up this Friday, we are having the Hassan Family Picnic, and it's going to be very exciting. And then the other thing I want to do is read to you the birthdays. Happy birthday. So we have January birthdays, and we are going to read the birthdays that are from January 16th through January 22nd. All right, we have Jack in Miss Peterson's class, Kennedy in Mrs. Spears, Alexis in Mrs. Dazowski's, Calvin and Mrs. Harns, Magnus and Miss Klein, Luke and Mrs. Hamilton, Scarlett and Mrs. Spalding, Hunter and Mrs. Spalding, Edith and Miss Lochner, Connor and Miss Lochner, Olivia and Mrs. Cedargren, and Vivian and Mrs. Stemick's class. Happy birthday, January birthdays. Come on down and get a pencil and a book. All right, we also have half birthdays for those in July, and I'm going to read the birthdays from July 16th through 22nd. Okay, we have Olivia and Mrs. Ackerson, Sydney and Miss Dockendorf, Norjan and Mrs. Cedargren, Juliet and Mrs. Craig, Jackson and Mrs. Klein, Harper and Mrs. Sylvester, Charlie and Miss Dockendorf, Landon and Miss Lochner, Bennett and Mrs. Klein, Naomi and Mrs. Back, Hattie and Mrs. Craig, Ella and Mrs. Sylvester, Hadley and Mrs. Spears, Mackenzie and Mrs. Cedargren, Jacob and Mrs. Solberg, and Emily and Mrs. Greenwald's class. Happy half birthday. Come on down and get a pencil and a birthday book at a time when your teacher says it's convenient for your class. So happy birthday. We are so excited for all of you, the January birthdays and the July half birthdays. And then one other thing we're going to do, instead of having two videos, I am going to start calling out the rolling out early with the announcements. I think it'll be a little bit easier for some teachers. They've expressed that interest. All right, so this will be rolling out early, and it will be for the dates of January 23rd through 27th. So just please connect with Erin to get this all set up. All right, Mr. Willenbring, you get to roll on out early. And again, those dates will be January 23rd through 27th. All right, Hassan, I hope you have a wonderful day. Listen to your teacher, make good, safe choices.